All right. Hello to anyone who is here. I spend hours a day making books, and I figured I would just turn the camera on for at least one of them. So thank you for being here. If you are here because you usually watch my videos on interfaces, and are wondering why there's a sudden turn to books, that's because my wife and I started a publishing company at the top of the year, and we make all of our special editions in-house, and that's what I'm doing today. Working on some of those. So we're starting with some of our own works, just to get an idea of how the whole process works. And then if things go well, we'll move into publishing works by other authors. So today I'm building some text blocks. That's the interior part of the book. A hardbound book is made of two halves. There's the text block, and so that's all this. And then there's the case wrap, and that's this. And they meet at the very, very end of the process. So today I'm going to be working on the text block, and then maybe in a future live stream I can build the case wrap and case in a bit. If you have any questions, feel free to post them. I have the chat up, so I can. I'll try to remember to look over there on occasion. This is a really janky press. It gives me fits. But luckily, we stumbled into this much less janky press recently. So we'll get to decommission the janky one soon. Okay. So this is 8 books worth of signatures. The signature is just one of the sort of packets of pages inside of a sewn book. This book that we're building today has 7 signatures. Each signature has 4 sheets each, which equates to 8 pages inside the book, or 16 pages inside the book. So I already folded and punched these, so I have to punch the holes in our specific sewing pattern and press them overnight to get so that they have a really nice crisp crease there. All this paper has to be short grain so that it does that. So it starts as this. So this is how it begins, and it actually begins as twice or 4 times this big, and our paper supplier cuts it in half or quarters it so that it's short grain. Most paper comes long grain. And so when it's short grain, the grains are going like this instead of this. And it sounds small, but you can really feel it when you just kind of bend the paper. Or end pages or end sheets for this book are the same way. And you can feel the grain just when you bend it. And the grain matters a great deal. So it matters because by being short grain, you're able to get a better crease here. But also when you glue these down, when you case the book in, the water content from the glue causes the paper to expand, and it expands along the direction of the grain. So if it was long grain, it would expand toward the head and tail of the book. But since it's short grain, it expands toward the foredge. And so then you often get a little bit of the end page peeking out. You often cut that out. For this book, I chose to leave it, to let it peek out, because the exterior of the book, the accent color of this book is yellow. You can see it in the illustrations, and you can see it in the thread that we chose. I love an accent thread. So usually if you open any hardbound book around you right now, most of them you're going to find that there's like a super thin thread that's white, or that matches the paper really well. So it kind of disappears. But I really liked the idea. I really like it when a book does an accent thread. It kind of highlights the construction of the book. But on the exterior, there's really no peak of the of that accent color. We were going to do an end band that was yellow, but it just didn't look right. So we ended up going with a black. So I let a little bit of the end pages peek out so that you get a little pop of the yellow when you're looking at the exterior of the book. All right. So I'm going to sew up a text block. I couldn't decide if I wanted to talk or not talk on these live streams. So I'm happy to chat. I'll leave myself unmuted. Hit me with any questions you have. But if you would rather go for the silent version, just mute the stream, and then I will be your little work buddy on your second monitor or a background window while you do your work. And we'll keep an eye on the chat. I may forget, but I will try. Curious to see if I mess up a little bit because I'm slightly more distracted than usual by doing the live stream. But I think I have most of this in my muscle memory by now. If you've ever wondered how, if you notice with your hardbound books that are in a case wrap, if you open it up and you look at the spine is not connected to the text block. In fact, it kind of forms like a little triangle up, the text block does, when you open, say, to the middle. It's easiest to see. And you can see straight through. And that's called throwing up. That's the text block. That's how well it throws up, which is a terrible phrase that bookbinders are deeply committed to. But if you've ever wondered how the text block remains affixed to that case wrap, I'm about to show you. We're about to start that process. It begins this early. I find this to be very meditative. I could do this stuff for hours and hours and hours. I usually listen to an audiobook. Right now I'm listening to The Idea Factory about Bell Labs. I had just finished Dealers of Lightning about Xerox PARC. And this has nothing to do with either of the two institutions and only to do with the two books. But I found Dealers of Lightning to be like incredibly dull because it was mostly just flogging middle management for many mistakes of just letting things slip by for non-reasons. And the Bell Labs book, Idea Factory, did a much better job. Um, it explored how ideas. It's such an interesting process how ideas come to be, either in the mind of a single person or in the minds of many people over the course of some period of time. And it also kind of dove into like the very technical details of how things work, like the transistor. And the Dealers of Lightning book just glossed right over all those super interesting things. Like so many interesting things happened at Xerox PARC. So many hard ideas had to be, like how did they come up with the move command for the Xerox Star after, a decade almost of building new versions of Smalltalk? And the move command, was a simplification that um, covered so many different, bits of functionality, but it just kind of glossed over those kinds of details. But the Bell Labs book, The Idea Factory, highly recommended, really gets into the nitty gritty of how those ideas came together, how someone, after talking with their colleagues for weeks about some problem, realized while napping at their desk, the next unlock that helped lead to whatever, the transistor. Okay, so this is a linen tape, and I just cut it into 3 inches. There's 4 of them for this book. That's just the way we've designed it. I sew these linen tapes into the text block. And ultimately later, follow the next slide stream, these linen tapes, along with a sort of cheesecloth material, are what get glued between the text block and the case wrap. This is how they stay affixed. You'll notice if you have some older hardbacks, sometimes that little strip of, there's like this little strip of glue connecting the end page from the that's kind of glued to the case wrap and the text block. There's this little strip of glue there, and it's there because that's the one page you can't open quite as much as any of the other pages. It's sometimes it seems like that's the only thing holding the text block in place. For a well-made book, that's not the case. You have things like ropes, these they're not too thick, but cords. Sometimes you can feel them on the outside of the spine. You have these linen tapes, and you have this kind of cheesecloth-like material called super or mole. But for some hardbacks, that little strip of glue is in fact the only thing holding the two together, and you find that out when it separates, and then the case wrap just kind of starts peeling off the text block, and you don't quite know what to do. But there are people who are very handy with these things who gladly spend their days restoring those books. You can find them online, and you can send them your old books, and they'll get that case wrap reattached in the right ways. There's that meme that woodworking is 90% sanding that applies to a lot of different hobbies, that they're all 90% something. And it might look right now like bookbinding is 90% sewing. But I actually think bookbinding doesn't suffer from that phenomenon. And that's one of the things I really like about it. I timed myself on, I was making 8 books, and I timed myself on every step of the process. And they were all about even. It took 9 or 10 hours to do those 8 books. It took like just about 2 hours a piece to do, folding and punching, which was already done to these, to do this sewing step, along with gluing the spine in parallel, which we may get to today. Assume we will. Took 2 hours to, you got to cut these text blocks down on a guillotine. We may pull that out today as well. And then you finish the spines, and keep getting cut. And then about 2 hours again to build case wraps and case in. Packaging takes a surprisingly long amount of time too, though. You could argue that bookbinding is 90% waiting for glue to dry, but you find other things to do. And if you're one of the people who was wondering why my videos just flipped from interface design to bookbinding, and you're bummed about that fact, I did make my private videos public this morning. So you can just close this one and head into those. It should be perfectly entertaining. Some cats crying in the background of them. We'll have cats crying in the background of this one too, I'm sure, soon enough. This has to be the least interesting thing on YouTube at the moment. What's going on with y'all? What are y'all working on? What are y'all reading? The hard part of this step is taut but not tight. If it's too tight, it kind of warps the alignment of your signatures and your text block kind of bows in where the outer signatures are kind of out a little bit. And boy, it took me a while to dial that in, but I think I eventually got there. This is a fun spread in the book. See this? This fun spread in the book. It's kind of a core piece, seeing how code from a higher level language breaks down into assembly, which breaks down into machine code, which is a hexadecimal equivalent to binary that runs directly in your CPU. I had a friend when I was in college who wanted to understand how this whole thing worked. Like he always knew that um, computers ran on binary, right? Like that's some kind of truth that is said. But he wanted to understand how what was in between that and what he saw or what I did when I wrote code. And so we spent, I don't know, like 2.5, 3 hours at his apartment one afternoon. Went through as much of it as we could in the time. I missed a class, blew right through a class, which I was fine with. That was a much more interesting conversation than I'm sure whatever was happening in that class. But there were still some pieces. I knew the major bones of that story, but there was a lot of the sinew I didn't necessarily know. That friend died suddenly, really unexpectedly. I think it was the next semester, maybe. Um, so we never got to really finish that conversation. Anyway, so however many years later, uh, I do know the answers. I do know the sinew, and so I figured I should put it into a book for all of the like-minded, curious people who, they're not going to go and study computer science or computer engineering, but they deeply want to know what on earth is between the binary and this, screen that I'm looking at, and how the heck did we come up with those steps? How did we build each step out of the last one? It's a pretty cool story. It's a very human story. Um, it's a really cool, tangible example of how we built society out of nothing. That's what this book is about. I guess I'm not really pitching it. It's not available at the moment. If you want a copy, just email me. Give you a purchase link that isn't publicly available. So I guess you really can't see what's happening here. Maybe I should angle. So as I go through these, although I don't, do you care? I guess you care. You're here. So as I go through these, I wrap each thread around each thread loop around the inner tape, around the linen tape. And this is the part of the thread you will never see. It's going to end up inside the case unless you disassemble the book, which is perfectly fine to do. And then this is the side of the thread you will see inside your book. But I wrapped each one around the linen tape. And that's part of what secures the text block to the tapes, which secure it to the case wrap later on. It's all not tight. Make a knot at the end of each one of these signatures as part of the holds the whole thing together. This book has some really fun illustrations. We started with a thinner paper. It was the same color and size, but it was I say it was 60 pound. This might be 80. We had to bump up because these illustrations kind of bleed through. Can you see this? So this is a kind of like an isomorphic illustration of a circuit that we get into later in this chapter. It's this 4-bit comparator. And this is actually that same 4-bit comparator, just kind of illustrated. We had a lot of fun with the chapter illustrations for this book. So the thicker paper helps support those. Back when this was so the reason why these books are made this way, the text block separate from the case wrap, was during industrialization with the need to ramp up efficiency in the production of books. They kind of separated those, figured out how to separate, right, the people figured out how to separate those two components and marry them at the end, and that way the tasks could be parallelized. At the time, and still to this day, I mean, people still use these. There are these big apparatuses that you have these linen tapes on. They hold the linen tape stiff, and you kind of sew around it. With this, there's kind of a top crossbar and a bottom base, and you kind of sew around the linen tapes. If you see like old bookbinding pictures or illustrations, you'll usually see people using one of those. It's the same concept, same result as this. I'm just not using one of those. You have to be careful to pull the thread kind of parallel with the spine so I don't tear the pages. I've done it before. This feels a little weird to be manufacturing the book I wrote, but it's in service of a greater thing. I'd rather burn all my beginner's mistakes on my own work so I can learn what I need to learn to do this kind of thing well before I apply myself to somebody else's life's work. And this is just how we're making our special editions when we move into higher volume things, we'll likely do paperbacks with a print company we've grown fond of that can do it with a bit more automation so we can get higher volume runs out. But this is how we'll always do our special editions. They'll be handmade. These are all archival quality pigment inks, acid free, everything. So they should last generations into centuries if they're taken care of. Okay, so that is one text block. I'm just tie it up. Usually I do a bunch of these at once, but for the sake of not being too boring, I'll move it to the next step. So, next step. We have, as I mentioned, we have these lovely yellow-orange end papers. But for this book, we pulled 4 images from computing's history to serve as that kind of interior illustration. When you open the book, you see those. So this is the ENIAC. 2 women working on the ENIAC. They're reprogramming it. You'll see. There are in the image credits in the book, it describes what's going on in each picture and who the people are. But now we affix the end pages to the text block with that thin strip of glue. We have to fold them first. All right. So when we're done, this one will be here and this one will be here. Okay. Sarah, my partner in all things, usually does this step, so I'm liable to make mistakes here. I almost just glued it to the cutting mat, which would have been funny. I was nervous about putting these on the wrong sides or upside down. Yeah, so if you have old hardbacks, this is why those end pages come undone after use 50, 60, 80 years. It's just a thin strip of glue right there, which is why we reinforce the spine a lot more. But if you do have hardbacks where it's come undone, you can fix it. I do tend to put a thicker stripe of glue myself, but it does mean that page doesn't open quite as much as the others. I like it being secured. That first page is the half title anyway. The first page of the book being the half title, once you flip, then you get to the full title. Okay. That looks good. Oh boy. Okay. Yeah, so usually I stack a couple in here at once, but I'm just going to do this one today. So now we're going to glue up the spine. So this is kind of one of those big moments where something gets set in place. And that something at this step is the alignment of the signatures. So if any one of them is kind of janked up or down a little bit, then when we go to cut the whole thing, that signatures pages will all be off by a little bit, and maybe the bleed doesn't quite work. So we want to make sure everything is really aligned. We want to make sure all the signatures are flat against the back, because this is a square back book. So I'm just checking the alignment of the signatures. Can you hear my cat sneezing? You okay, buddy? Hey. So this glue that we use on the spines it's acid free, so it won't eat into the paper, over the course of years or decades. But more importantly, or equally as important, it dries. It's strong. It has a tight hold, but it's flexible. So when you open the book, obviously it can bend without breaking. And we apply a couple of coats of this. Get it there. So this glue just kind of seeps in to the spine. As you can see, it kind of seeps into the sort of the cracks in between the signatures, which is part of why we need to press it. If it was kind of loose and that glue seeped too far in between the signatures, then every eighth page turn, the pages wouldn't come apart quite as much. And it seeps into the holes where the threads are to just kind of help hold everything together. We'll let that glue sit for just like 15, 10 minutes. And then I'll apply another coat. In the meantime, I can swap another signature. Well, set of signatures. this page here, these interesting little diagrams are. Sorry if you just joined us and you're wondering why it's so quiet. It's because I've already run out of things to say. Figured I would just let the moments pass with nature. But these diagrams here on this page are showing how error correcting codes work, specifically Hamming codes, kind of the first error correcting codes. I was afraid they were going to be a little too hard to follow. I was afraid we were going to have to remove them from the book, but they seemed to pass with the reviewers, which was good. I was excited about that. It's a really neat concept, set of concepts. If you look at any of your hardback books today, even when they're not made by hand, this is how we were making it at the turn of the 19th century or so. But even if they are made, with automated machinery, this is still the same general construction. Now, you might find some of your hardbacks are actually made the way softbacks are, where the instead of this sort of folio thing where you have signatures that are folded and then sewn together. It's just a sheet printed out, just like you would, print a document, and then the ends of the pages kind of glued together. Usually, kind of rough it. It's what perfect binding is. You just kind of rough up the edges of that stack, and then apply a bunch of glue, and that holds it together. And you might find these days that some of your hardbacks are that just then put into some kind of a case wrap. But barring those, if you open any of your hardbacks that you have on your shelf today, even when they're made with um, automated equipment, you'll find that they have the same or similar construction. You'll be able to, every eighth or some odd page, you'll see the thread. And as I said before, it's often not, vibrant like this. In some fun books it is. Um, and if your spine is rounded, you might even be able to feel this is a square back. But if it's rounded, you might even be able to feel the chords or the tapes. Been on for 52 minutes. What do you think? Should we stop at an hour? Pull some finished books out of the press or something. We'll get tie a nice deal on this. Pulling books out of the press is always kind of funny. It's kind of an involved process to break the spine in. You have to perform a little incantation to make sure that the book doesn't always open to the exact same page every time the reader tries to open it. More copies of the book available? I'm not sure. We're still trying to figure out. Now we have the complexity of timing up print runs of this book with other books that we have in development. But if you were unable to purchase one, just shoot me an email. My email's on the website. I'll send you a link. Okay, Buffy says hi. Company namesake. He wants to make sure he gets a word in. He oversees the work. There is another text block. That's exciting. Okay. 56 minutes. Yeah, we can finish gluing this thing, and then maybe I could pull some finished books out of the press. All right, so you can see now this has the glue. You can't see. It's gotten a lot. It's tacky now. It's set up. So we can apply our second layer. We apply two layers like this, and then there's kind of a third that gets added on just because of what happens to it next. I'll show you that in a second. All right, let me know what you want from live streams in the future too. We can do just quiet ones where we're just being meditative. We can do talking ones. I could have folks on, make them talk about more interesting things. Let me know what you want. This is just a good way to force me to clean up the bindery on a regular basis, and a nice way to be a little less alone for this part of my day. So that little extra bit of thread just gets pressed into the glue. That's what I was doing just. So now this one's being finished being glued, but there's one other step that'll happen to it. Maybe I'll do it on a future live stream. But so this is where we're at right now. So we've just got we have our end pages on here, just kind of glued on with that little strip. We have our linen tapes and two passes of that sort of flexible glue down the spine. And then, hey, Colin, I hope you are surviving the heat down there right now. And then the next step we're going to, the only two new pieces that we're looking at here are this mole or super, it's kind of like a cheesecloth. This also helps, especially with these ribs, helps adhere the text block to the case wrap when we go to case in. So this is a case wrap that I just finished yesterday. So this is just kind of what the exterior of the book is. And so when we ultimately what we're going to do is glue these are called fly leaves, to the exterior or to the interior of the case wrap. And when we do that, we're also going to be gluing the linen tapes and the mole to the boards as well. And so that's what holds the text block. If you've ever wondered how it's staying in place, even though it's not connected with the spine, that's what's going to most solidly hold this thing in place. So that's the only other step that happens to a text block, as well as these end bands. So these used to be sort of sewn in as a part of the construction of the book. But I don't know, for the last 100, 150 years, I think it's just been, purely decorative. Usually often they're striped, but we went for a solid black on this book. So let's wrap up this stream. Let me pull some books out of a press so we can see what we're aiming at. We have one in this press, but I just put it in there, so she's not ready yet. Let's see if we can get this one. Okay. So these two are from yesterday, and they look good. So as you can see, we put some wax paper in between the case wrap and the text block when we glued it in. There's a lot of glue. that happens at that step, and it has to dry up. That keeps us from having things stick that we don't want sticking. Which looks pretty good. So we want to see that the boards are not bowing. Here, let's look at this one. This one's, so it's been humid in here. So this one, you can see it's bowing, the text block is wavy, and that's in part just because of the humidity today. But the bowing of the boards can happen when the board is being unevenly pulled on each side. So the board is being pulled on this side from the book cloth and on this side from the end pages, and we want it to be pulled evenly so that it remains straight like that. And so this one looks good. And then we open it. We have to crack the spine in carefully in the middle, maybe around 75%, around 25%. And then we'll just go every few pages. This way it doesn't, oh, I love this page. This one, I mean, this was most of the work on this book by time. Building out this map. This is all of the undersea cables connecting, all the continents for, various communications, and a couple of interesting little tidbits about some of them. This one is really interesting. It's really hard to see, isn't it? But the rightmost, the shortest segment of the black cable that you see here became damaged in 2022 when a volcano erupted near Tonga. And so Tonga had no internet for at least a week, and then they got at some point within a month they were connected, and maybe they had satellites, but the cables didn't come back online, restoring full internet access to the island country for, I don't know, 4-6 months. It was a long period of time. Okay, so we're just cracking the spine in. And that way it opens nicely and evenly. And she looks pretty good. So you can see the fly leaves did not expand too much. So you can't, there's just a peak of yellow coming out here. And if there was more, maybe you would want to trim that off. But again, I kind of like that we get a pop of the accent color of the book coming out. Yeah, so this one looks good. Let's crack open the other one just as delicately. The other thing we want to see is really good gap development on the spine, so that we can, so that it just opens really nicely. I always like when you see a book that has a really well-formed channel there. Okay, see, now this one's an interesting one. This one doesn't look so good. So this one got overpressed just a little bit. So you can see the spine is kind of off, which is fixable. But we'll see how else it forms. So you can see the spine kind of curved up a little bit. So we don't love that. This is a square back, not a rounded back. So yes, let me know what you want in future live streams. We can play with making a case wrap and casing in. It's its own interesting process. And we can pull folks in to chat about more interesting things while I go. I could also try to just build one book in one live stream. Yes, this one may end up in the donate pile. We'll see. See if we can restore that. We do want to see, so that throwing up thing, of course, anyone new here is wondering why the hell I'm using that phrase. This is a thinner spine, but you can see it throws up pretty well. Yeah. All right. Well, we made 2 text blocks. We pulled 2 out of the press. It was a productive day. I'm going to keep working on these here. Let me know what you wanted what you'd like to see in a future live stream. Me and the cats will be here making books. Happy to throw the camera on, chat about things, chat with you. Our buddy says hi. Have you been able to see him the whole time? I hope so. All right. See y'all next time.